The voice chuckled. Well, Commander, we got our reasons. Rumor has it there's something valuable on that little blue planet of yours. We're just here to collect. Zorek's heart sank. The mercenaries didn't know the full truth, but they knew enough to be dangerous. He had to end this now, before it escalated. You will not proceed any further, Zorek said firmly. Turn back, or we will engage. There was another pause, and then the voice replied, You're welcome to try, Commander. Zorek's eyes flashed with anger. Sarek, arm all weapons. Target their engines. We'll disable them if we have to. The crew moved swiftly, the hum of the ship growing louder as weapon systems powered up. The tension on the bridge thickened as Zorek prepared for the worst. Suddenly, a blaring alarm filled the room. Commander, Sarek shouted. They're powering up their weapons. Zorek's blood ran cold. Evasive maneuvers. Return fire. Now. The ship lurched as it veered sharply to avoid the first volley of enemy fire. On the view screen, the mercenary ships came alive with blazing energy, firing relentlessly. Zorek's crew fought to counter their attacks, but the mercenaries were fast and ruthless. Shields holding at 70%. Sarek reported, his fingers moving rapidly over the controls. We've got a lock on their lead ship. Fire, Zorek commanded. The ship's cannons roared to life, sending a barrage of plasma bolts toward the nearest mercenary vessel. The enemy ship shook violently as the shots hit their mark, its engines flickering and sputtering. Direct hit, Sarek called out. Their engines are failing. But the other two ships were still fully operational. They broke formation, flanking Zorek's ship and hammering their shields with heavy fire. Shields down to 50%. Another crew member yelled. Zorek gritted his teeth. They couldn't afford to let the mercenaries win this. If those ships made it to Earth, the consequences could be catastrophic. But just as he was about to issue another order, something unexpected happened. The ship's sensors began to blare again, but this time it wasn't the mercenaries causing the alarm. Commander, we've got a new contact on sensors, Sarek reported, his voice filled with confusion. It's massive, and it's coming from Earth. Zorek's eyes widened. From Earth? What is it? Sarek struggled to make sense of the readings. It's not a ship, sir. It's energy. Massive energy signatures, like nothing we've seen before. And it's coming from the surface. Before Zorek could respond, the view screen lit up with a bright flash. From the planet below, a beam of pure energy shot into space, engulfing the lead mercenary ship in a blinding light. In an instant, the ship was vaporized, leaving nothing but debris floating in the void. The remaining mercenaries broke off their attack, retreating at full speed. They had no idea what had just happened, and neither did Zorek. What in the galaxy was that? Sarek whispered, his eyes wide with shock. Zorek stared at the view screen, his mind racing. The energy had come from Earth, from the very place they were sworn to protect. But how? And more importantly, why now? I don't know, Zorek said quietly, but I think we just got a glimpse of what's really hidden on that planet. The hidden power of Earth. As Commander Zorek stood on the bridge, the remnants of the mercenary fleet were nothing but fading blips on the screen. The mysterious energy blast from Earth had changed everything. His crew remained silent, processing the enormity of what they had just witnessed. The once unassuming planet, thought to be merely under the protection of the Galactic Council, now revealed a power that could rival the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. But as they stood united, a shadow loomed larger in the galaxy. The Zarkan Empire was not a foe to underestimate. Each passing day brought them closer to a confrontation that would test their resolve and strength. The storm was gathering, and the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see if humanity could rise to the occasion. As the leaders prepared for the challenges ahead, a flicker of hope ignited in their hearts. They were not alone anymore. They were stronger together, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The rising threat. The days turned into weeks as Earth prepared for the looming conflict. The alliance formed among the humans, Icarans, and Zolforians grew stronger with each passing day. In secret, they worked tirelessly, sharing knowledge and resources to create a plan that could stand against the might of the Zarkan Empire. However, uncertainty hung in the air like a thick fog, and every leader knew they had to act quickly. In the heart of Earth's capital, the combined forces held their first strategic meeting. Admiral Thompson stood at the front of the room, her expression serious. "We need to understand our enemy. The Zarkan Empire thrives on fear and intimidation. If we can break that, we stand a chance." Commander Zira nodded, her blue skin shimmering under the lights. "The Icarans have advanced reconnaissance technology. We can use it to gather intel on Zarkan movements and strategies." General Korak leaned forward, his sharp eyes narrowing. "Knowing their plans is vital, but we must also find a way to strike first. We need to show them that we are not afraid." As discussions continued, the room filled with maps, holographic displays, and models of their fleets. Each leader contributed their insights, and slowly, a plan began to take shape. They would launch a series of small-scale strikes against Zarkan supply lines, weakening their hold on the surrounding systems. However, in the midst of their planning, the Zarkan Empire was not idle. They had taken notice of the unusual alliances forming around Earth and were determined to crush any resistance. Their vast warships moved through the galaxy, leaving destruction in their wake. The reports of devastation came in daily, fueling the urgency of the Alliance's efforts. One fateful day, a transmission arrived from the Valorians. Their once peaceful planet was now in ruins. "We are under attack. The Zarkan forces are relentless." The voice trembled with fear and desperation. It was a wake-up call that reverberated through the Alliance. If the Valorians could be overwhelmed, what chance did they have? Admiral Thompson gathered everyone again. "We can't let fear take over. This is our chance to prove ourselves. We must act now and support the Valorians." As the leaders mobilized their forces, excitement and dread filled the air. The Alliance had to move quickly to stand against the Zarkans. Ships were loaded, weapons checked, and strategies refined. Every member of the Alliance felt the weight of responsibility on their shoulders. Dr. Chang worked day and night in the labs, creating new technology to enhance their ship's defensive capabilities. The collaboration among the scientists from each race resulted in impressive advancements. Together, they developed a cloaking device that could hide their ships from Zarkan sensors. As they prepared for battle, tension hung in the air. Each leader felt the pressure mounting. The Icarans and Zolforians had never fought alongside humans before. Would they trust their instincts when the time came? On the day of the mission, the ships took off under the cloak of darkness. Earth's skies lit up with the glow of engines as the fleet moved toward the Valorian system. Every pilot felt a mix of fear and anticipation. They were venturing into the unknown, ready to confront a foe that had already brought countless worlds to their knees. As they approached the Valorian planet, the sight that greeted them was devastating. The once vibrant planet now lay scared, with smoke rising from its surface. Zarkan ships patrolled the area, aggressive and intimidating. The sight made the hearts of the Allied forces sink. "Commander Zira, can we take them by surprise?" Admiral Thompson asked, her voice steady but urgent. "Yes," Zira replied, her tone filled with determination. "We can use the cloaking device to get close without being detected. Once we're in position, we strike." With a nod, Admiral Thompson gave the order, and the ships activated their cloaking systems. They glided silently toward the Zarkan fleet, which was unaware of the impending attack. The Alliance felt a rush of adrenaline as they drew closer to the enemy. The Allies unite. The victory over the Zarkan dreadnought sent shockwaves through the galaxy. News of the Alliance's triumph spread like wildfire, igniting hope among the oppressed planets still under Zarkan rule. For the first time, they saw a glimmer of resistance against the empire that had long terrorized them. In the weeks that followed, The Allied forces turned their attention to rebuilding and strengthening their unity. Meetings were held on Earth, where leaders from each species gathered to discuss their next moves. The atmosphere in the Grand Hall was a mix of optimism and caution. They had won a battle, but the war was far from over. Admiral Thompson stood at the front of the room, her voice steady. Our victory was significant, but we cannot rest. The Zarkan Empire will retaliate, and we must be prepared. General Korak spoke next, his deep voice echoing in the hall. We need to solidify our alliances. There are many worlds still suffering under Zarkan rule. We must reach out and show them they are not alone. Commander Zira nodded in agreement. The Akarans can assist in creating a network of communication between planets. We can share intel and resources. As they discussed strategies, a holographic map of the galaxy illuminated the room. Each planet marked with a glowing dot represented a potential ally or a world in distress. Dr. Chung, who had been working tirelessly, presented her findings. We've developed a new communication device that can send messages across vast distances. This will allow us to coordinate with other planets in real time. Excitement buzzed through the room as they realized the potential of their technology. With the ability to communicate efficiently, they could establish a network of support that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. As the leaders strategized, they received a distress signal from a nearby planet, Korea Prime. The Zarkan forces were advancing, threatening to annihilate everything in their path. We can't let that happen, Admiral Thompson said firmly. We have to send aid immediately. The Alliance mobilized quickly, dispatching ships to Korea Prime. As they traveled through the stars, tension filled the air. Each crew member understood the stakes. The lives of countless innocent beings depended on their actions. As they entered Korea Prime's orbit, the scene before them was chaotic. The Zarkan ships loomed over the planet, firing upon the surface. Bright explosions lit up the dark void of space, and fear gripped the hearts of the Allied forces. Prepare for battle, Admiral Thompson commanded. We need to provide cover for any civilians escaping the planet. The Allied ships launched into action, forming a protective perimeter around Korea Prime. The Zarkan forces were caught off guard by the sudden appearance of the Alliance, and their confusion created an opening for the Allies to strike. General Korak coordinated the attack, guiding the Zolforian ships to target the Zarkan flanks. The Akarans darted through the fray, their advanced technology allowing them to outmaneuver the larger Zarkan vessels. Amid the chaos, Admiral Thompson kept her focus on the mission. We must ensure the civilians can evacuate safely. Zira, lead the rescue operations. Commander Zira's ships broke off from the main battle, swooping down toward the planet's surface. They deployed smaller craft designed for rapid evacuations. As Zira and her team descended into the fray, they encountered fierce resistance. Zarkan ground troops were everywhere, trying to thwart the evacuation efforts. But the Akarans were quick and agile, their ships weaving through enemy fire. Deploy the shield, Zira shouted as they landed near a group of civilians huddled together, terrified. With a swift motion, her team activated the protective barrier around the evacuation zone. Follow us. We'll get you to safety, Zira called out, her voice cutting through the chaos. The civilians, filled with fear and desperation, began to board the ships. Above them, the battle raged on. The Allied forces fought valiantly, their determination growing with every Zarkan ship that fell. The tide was turning, and the Zarkans were starting to realize that their reign of terror was being challenged. But just as victory seemed within reach, a massive Zarkan warship appeared from behind a nearby moon. Its dark silhouette loomed ominously against the stars. It was equipped with a weapon that could obliterate an entire fleet in one shot. Admiral, we've got a problem, came the frantic voice of a crew member. That warship is locking onto our position. Admiral Thompson felt her heart race. We can't let them fire. Zira, how's the evacuation going? We're almost done. Just a few more civilians left. Zira responded, her focus unwavering as she directed her team. Hold them off as long as you can. We need to protect those civilians, Thompson shouted, rallying her forces. As the Zarkan warship charged its weapon, the Allied forces pushed forward, determined to prevent the destruction. General Korak led a squadron in a desperate maneuver, using their ships to create a diversion. Everyone, split up. We need to confuse them, Korak commanded, his voice filled with resolve. The Allied ships scattered in all directions, dodging incoming fire. Just as the Zarkan warship fired, the combined efforts of the Alliance caused the blast to miss its target. The energy beam shot past them and into the depths of space. Now, Zira, get those civilians out of here, Admiral Thompson urged, feeling the urgency rise within her. With the last civilians safely on board, Zira's team swiftly lifted off. The barrier around the evacuation site faded as they ascended, and the Zarkan warship turned its focus back to the fleeing Icaran ships. The Allied forces seized the opportunity. Together, they unleashed a coordinated attack on the warship, using everything they had. As their weapons blazed, the Zarkan ship began to tremble under the pressure. Finally, after an intense barrage, the warship erupted in a brilliant explosion, lighting up the dark expanse of space. The Zarkan forces faltered, and one by one, they began to retreat. With victory achieved, the Allied forces cheered, their spirits lifted. They had fought valiantly to save Korea Prime, and their unity had proven powerful. As they regrouped, Zira felt a swell of pride. We did it. We saved them. Admiral Thompson surveyed the aftermath, the gravity of their actions weighing on her. This is just the beginning. We've shown the galaxy what we can do when we stand together. In that moment, they understood the significance of their alliance. They were no longer just individual species. They were a united force, standing tall against the darkness that threatened their galaxy. The fight was far from over, but they knew they could face whatever came next together. The seeds of rebellion. With the successful evacuation of Korea Prime and the destruction of the Zarkan warship, the Allied forces returned to Earth, where they were greeted as heroes. The victory brought hope to many oppressed worlds, and the Alliance's actions were broadcast across the galaxy, inspiring others to rise against their oppressors. Back on Earth, Admiral Thompson stood before a large screen displaying the faces of leaders from various Allied worlds. "We must not let this victory go to waste," she said, her voice filled with determination. "We need to use this momentum to inspire others to join our cause." General Korak, his dark, scaled skin gleaming under the lights, added, "Many planets are still under the Zarkan thumb. They need to know they have allies. We must reach out to them and help them rise." Commander Zira nodded, her expression serious. "We should also prepare for retaliation. The Zarkan Empire won't take this lightly. They will come for us with everything they have." As the leaders discussed their next moves, Dr. Chang presented her latest research. "We've developed a plan to create small resistance cells on planets still under Zarkan control. We can help them organize and resist from within." The idea sparked excitement among the leaders. They began to strategize how to send covert teams to different worlds. Their goal was to empower the oppressed, showing them that rebellion was possible. As plans were laid out, Admiral Thompson felt a surge of hope. "We must act swiftly. We have the element of surprise on our side. We need to be ready when the Zarkans decide to retaliate." With newfound determination, the Alliance began recruiting volunteers for these covert missions. Individuals from various species stepped forward, eager to take part in the fight for freedom. Among them was a young human named Alex, who had witnessed the Zarkan brutality firsthand. "I want to help," Alex said, his eyes shining with resolve. "We can't let them hurt anyone else. I'm willing to go wherever you need me." His passion inspired others, and soon a diverse group was formed. They trained rigorously, learning about guerrilla tactics, sabotage, and communication. Each day, their resolve strengthened, and they grew closer as a team. Meanwhile, the Zarkan Empire was not idle. Following their defeat at Korea Prime, They intensified their efforts to squash any hint of rebellion. In a secret meeting, Zarkan commanders gathered to discuss their next steps. Humans and their allies are becoming a significant threat, Commander Vrax said, his sharp claws tapping against the table. We must crush them before they gain more support. A towering figure among them. The Supreme Commander glared at the holographic map of the galaxy. Send more ships to the outer regions. We need to intimidate these planets. Show them what happens when they resist. The Zarkan commanders exchanged glances, fear flickering in their eyes. They understood that the tide was turning. They could no longer underestimate the humans and their allies. Back on Earth, the time for action was at hand. Admiral Thompson gathered the volunteers in a large hall, their faces filled with determination. Today, we begin our mission to ignite the flames of rebellion across the galaxy. You will be our eyes and ears on the ground. Remember, you're not alone. We're fighting for our freedom and the freedom of others. As they prepared to depart, Zira noticed the anxiety on some of the recruits' faces. She stepped forward, her voice steady. Fear is natural, but remember why you're here. You're not just fighting for yourselves. You're fighting for those who cannot fight. Together, we will succeed. The recruits cheered, their spirits lifted. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the teams dispersed to their respective planets, they operated under the cover of darkness, blending in with their surroundings. On each world, they reached out to the oppressed, offering support and hope. On the planet of Thaloria, a lush world under Zarkan control, Alex and his team set up communication lines with local resistance groups. They explained their mission, and soon, Valorians joined their cause, eager to stand against their oppressors. Together, we can strike a blow against the Zarkans, Alex urged. They think they can control us, but they are wrong. We will show them our strength. As news of the rebellion spread, more and more planets began to rally against the Zarkan Empire. It was a beautiful sight to behold, but the Zarkans responded with brutal force, determined to quell any sign of resistance. Back in the Zarkan Command Center, the Supreme Commander grew furious as reports of uprisings flooded in. This cannot continue. We must send a clear message, he shouted, slamming his fist on the table. Mobilize our forces, Vrax suggested. We will crush these rebellions swiftly. They will learn that resistance is futile. As the Zarkans prepared for a massive counter-offensive, the Allies gathered intelligence on their movements. The stakes were higher than ever, but the flames of rebellion burned brightly across the galaxy. The fight was far from over, and the Allied forces stood ready to face whatever darkness awaited them. As battles raged across different planets, the determination of the Allied forces grew stronger. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for a brighter future, a future where no one would live in fear of the Zarkan Empire. With each victory, they planted the seeds of hope, and soon, the galaxy would know that the fight for freedom had only just begun. Together, they would stand against the tide of darkness, united and unyielding. Back on Earth, the news of their success spread like wildfire. The destruction of the supply depot sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Resistance groups rallied, emboldened by the bravery of Alex's team. Admiral Thompson watched the reports with pride. This is just the beginning. We need to keep the momentum going, she said, her eyes shining with determination. But as the celebrations continued, dark clouds loomed over the Zarkan Empire. The Supreme Commander seethed with fury as reports of the attack reached him. These rebels will pay dearly for this affront. He growled, his fists clenched. Mobilize our forces. We must crush this rebellion swiftly, he ordered, his voice dripping with venom. As the Zarkan forces prepared to retaliate, the Allied forces braced themselves for the coming storm. The fight was far from over, and the stakes had never been higher. Alex and his team knew they had ignited a flame of hope across the galaxy, but they also understood that the Zarkans would respond with everything they had. The tension hung thick in the air as the forces on both sides prepared for the inevitable clash. The The seeds of rebellion had been sown, and the galaxy was about to witness the power of unity in the face of oppression. With every victory, the resolve of the Allied forces grew stronger, and they stood ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they would fight for their freedom and for the future of countless worlds. The gathering forces. The galaxy was in turmoil. News of the successful counteroffensive spread quickly, igniting hope among the oppressed and striking fear into the hearts of the Zarkan Empire. Every victory against the Zarkans seemed to fuel the flames of rebellion, and the alliances between the resistance forces grew stronger with each passing day. On Earth, Admiral Thompson gathered her most trusted commanders in the war room. The atmosphere was tense, filled with anticipation and the weight of the responsibility they bore. The holographic display flickered, showcasing the galaxy, marked with the locations of Zarkan strongholds and Allied resistance groups. "We've made progress, but we need to prepare for the Zarkans' retaliation," Thompson said, her voice steady. "The recent attack on the Torith depot has sparked a fire of resistance throughout the galaxy. But the Zarkans will not sit idle. They will come at us with everything they have." General Korak, his expression serious, nodded in agreement. "Their anger will fuel their wrath. We must fortify our defenses and bolster our forces before they strike." "Exactly," Commander Zira chimed in. "We need to reach out to the other resistance groups and unite our efforts. We can't fight this battle alone." With a shared understanding, the commanders began to strategize. They discussed potential alliances, focusing on planets where resistance movements had already formed. They reached out to leaders of other factions, inviting them to unite under a single banner. The vision was clear. Together, they would stand against the oppressive Zarkan Empire. As messages were sent across the stars, each resistance group responded with enthusiasm. From the planet of Ryloth, known for its stealthy inhabitants, to the rocky terrain of Dracos where the fierce warriors resided, the call to arms resonated throughout the galaxy. Slowly but surely, a coalition of forces began to form, united by a shared desire for freedom. Meanwhile, on Zarkan's home planet, the Supreme Commander paced angrily in his war room, surrounded by his top generals. Reports of the failed supply depot and the growing rebellion plagued his thoughts. He slammed his fist on the table, making everyone flinch. "This insurrection must be crushed," he bellowed, his eyes blazing with fury. "We will not allow these insignificant beings to defy our rule." One of his generals, a calculating figure named Carrick, stepped forward. "Supreme Commander, we need to rethink our strategy. These humans have proven resourceful. If we don't act quickly, we may lose control of several key systems. Then let us strike back with overwhelming force," the Supreme Commander commanded. "We will mobilize our fleet and crush them before they can unite fully. We will show them the might of the Zarkan Empire." As Zarkan forces mobilized, the resistance coalition continued to strengthen. Alex and his team were at the forefront of this effort. They worked tirelessly, connecting with other resistance leaders and coordinating their movements. On a designated rendezvous point, they met with representatives from various planets, each bringing their unique strengths to the coalition. The room buzzed with energy as they discussed tactics and strategies. "We need to hit the Zarkans where it hurts," Alex said, addressing the gathered leaders. "We must target their key supply lines and military installations. The more we disrupt their operations, the weaker they will become." A leader from Ryloth, a sly and agile being named Farron, nodded in agreement. "We can use our stealth technology to infiltrate their systems. A series of quick strikes can keep them off balance." Another leader, a burly warrior from Dracos named Vorn, slammed his fist on the table. "And we will provide the muscle. Our forces will charge head-on, distracting them while you strike at their supply routes." The plans began to take shape, and excitement filled the air. The coalition leaders recognized the potential of their united forces. They would fight together, combining their strengths to face the Zarkan Empire head-on. However, amidst the growing optimism, a sense of foreboding loomed. Admiral Thompson could feel the tension in the air. The Zarkans were gathering their forces, and she knew a major conflict was on the horizon. "We must act quickly," Thompson said, her voice steady. "Time is not on our side. The Zarkans will strike soon, and we need to be prepared." In the days that followed, the coalition worked around the clock. They coordinated their forces, sharing intelligence and resources. The ships of the Resistance were painted with the symbols of their unity, and the sight of them together filled the hearts of many with hope. As they prepared for the impending battle, a message arrived from the Zarkan Empire. The Supreme Commander issued a statement, declaring that anyone aiding the rebels would face dire consequences. His voice echoed through the galaxy, a chilling reminder of the power the Zarkans wielded. But the coalition did not waver. Instead, they stood resolute, ready to face whatever the Zarkans would unleash. They were no longer just a group of individuals fighting for their own survival. They were a unified front, a beacon of hope for countless worlds. As the stars shimmered in the night sky, Alex looked out from the bridge of their ship, feeling the weight of the moment. "This is it," he thought. "We're on the brink of something bigger than any of us. We have a chance to change the course of history." With their forces gathered and their resolve hardened, the coalition prepared for the battle of a lifetime. The storm was brewing, and they were ready to face it together. As they awaited the inevitable clash with the Zarkan Empire, they knew one thing for certain: they would not go down without a fight. The final stand. The time had come. The coalition's forces gathered at the designated battlefront, an empty expanse of space near the Zarkan stronghold of Velgaris. The atmosphere was thick with tension and anticipation. Ships of all shapes and sizes filled the starfield, each one carrying the hopes and dreams of countless beings from across the galaxy. Admiral Thompson stood on the bridge of the flagship, the SS Unity, her eyes scanning the holographic display of the battlefield. All around her, Resistance fighters were busy preparing for the battle ahead. The colors of their various factions mixed together, a tapestry of unity against the looming threat of the Zarkan Empire. "Listen up, everyone." Thompson's voice cut through the noise, drawing everyone's attention. "Today, we fight not just for our survival, but for our freedom. We fight for every being who has suffered under the Zarkan's rule. We fight as one." Cheers erupted from the crew, fueling their determination. Each pilot, soldier, and engineer knew the stakes. The Zarkan Empire had threatened their homes for far too long. This was their chance to strike back. Alex stood beside Thompson, feeling a mix of excitement and dread. He glanced at his team, who were focused and ready. Their journey had led them to this moment, and he could feel the weight of their combined efforts. The stakes had never been higher. Zorak nodded. "That's why we need to stay one step ahead. If these other factions get involved, it could lead to open conflict. We have to protect the humans, and whatever lies beneath the surface of Earth, from being exploited." "But do you really think we can?" Sarek asked, his voice tinged with doubt. "If the humans are as important as the Council believes, how long can we keep them in the dark?" Zorak didn't have an answer for that. The humans were resilient, resourceful, and far more capable than anyone had anticipated. If they learned the truth about their past, they could become a force that neither the Council nor any other power in the galaxy could control. "We'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it," Zorak finally said. "For now, we focus on keeping Earth safe from outside interference." Just as Zorak was about to issue orders to the crew, the ship's sensors began to blink wildly. A warning signal flashed across the control panel. Sarek immediately jumped to his station, pulling up the data. "We've got incoming ships," Sarek announced, his voice tense. 3 of them, approaching fast. "They're not transmitting any identification codes." Zorak's heart raced. "Can you tell who they belong to?" Sarek's hands flew over the controls as he analyzed the data. It's hard to say, but their design matches known mercenary craft. Small, fast, heavily armed. Zorak's jaw tightened. "Looks like Colonel Render was right. They're here already. What's the plan, Commander? Sarek asked, his eyes locked on Zorak. Zorak didn't hesitate. We intercept. Bring the ship to full alert. We can't let them get anywhere near Earth. As the crew scrambled to follow his orders, Zorak felt the weight of the mission settle heavily on his shoulders. The galaxy's secrets were unraveling at a frightening pace, and Earth was the key to it all. He could only hope that they were ready for what was coming next. Shadows in the void. The ship hummed as Commander Zorak watched the mercenary crafts approach on the view screen. His crew moved efficiently, hands flying over controls as they prepared for an intercept course. The tension in the air was palpable. Each passing second brought the rogue ships closer to Earth, and closer to the secrets Zorak had sworn to protect. Sarek, status report. Zorak barked, his eyes fixed on the flashing blips that represented the incoming mercenaries. Sarek quickly scanned the data in front of him. 3 ships, all armed and moving at high velocity. They're running without transponders, and based on their maneuvering patterns, they're definitely not friendly. Zorak clenched his fists. They know something's on Earth, but not what. If they get any closer, it could trigger a chain of events we can't stop. What's the plan, Commander? Sarek asked, his voice tight with urgency. Zorak glanced around the bridge at his crew, their faces a mix of determination and anxiety. He knew that engaging these ships could risk exposing the very thing they were trying to protect. But letting them reach Earth wasn't an option. We intercept them before they enter Earth's atmosphere, Zorak ordered. Open communications, but keep our weapons hot. I don't want to fight, but if they force our hand. The crew nodded, and the ship shifted course, engines roaring as they closed in on the mercenaries. As they neared, Zorak took a deep breath. Diplomacy wasn't his strong suit, but maybe he could buy them some time. Opening a channel now, sir, Sarek reported. Zorak stood tall, his face hardening as he spoke. Unidentified ships. This is Commander Zorak of the Galactic Reconnaissance Fleet. You are approaching a restricted zone. State your business, or we will be forced to take defensive action. There was a moment of silence on the other end. Then a crackling voice came through the speakers. Commander Zorak, is it? You've got quite the reputation. The voice was smooth, but there was an underlying menace that made Zorak's skin crawl. We're just passing through. No need for hostility.